Imagine you're about to enter a room. Just before crossing the door, they stop you and say this: if you enter, a prophecy will be fulfilled that says you will not enter. So you stop. But if you don't enter, the prophecy is fulfilled. And if you do enter, then the prophecy is broken, which means it wasn't true. But if it wasn't true, then why didn't you enter? This is the prophet's paradox, and although it seems like a simple riddle, it puts you in front of a crushing idea. What happens when the knowledge of a prediction directly affects the outcome? Paradoxes aren't just curiosities. They're holes in logic, bubbles in the fabric of thought that show us that no matter how rational we are, there are things that simply don't fit. And today you're going to see 5 of the best ones. 5 paradoxes that won't just make you think. They'll make you doubt how time, truth, and reality itself work. Stay until the end, because paradox number 1 won't just confuse you. It'll challenge something as basic as the idea that a sentence can be true or false. Five, the barber paradox. Imagine a small town where a very peculiar barber lives. This barber has one rule he follows to the letter. He shaves all the men in town who do not shave themselves, and only those. If someone shaves themselves, the barber doesn't get involved. But if someone doesn't shave, then the barber shaves them. And here comes the big question. Who shaves the barber? If the barber shaves himself, he's breaking his own rule, because he only shaves those who don't shave themselves. But if he doesn't shave himself, then he must shave himself, because that's exactly his job. You fell for it. It's a logical trap. This paradox was invented by philosopher and mathematician Bertrand Russell to show how certain definitions, when applied to themselves, collapse. The barber paradox isn't just an absurd story. It's a warning. Even a rule that seems clear can become impossible if it turns against itself. For the omnipotence paradox. Can an all-powerful being create a stone so heavy that even it cannot lift it? In that simple question hides one of the most famous philosophical paradoxes of all time. If the being can create the stone, then there's something it cannot do: lift it. But if it cannot create it, then there's something it cannot do: create it. In both cases, its absolute power is in doubt. This dilemma has been debated for centuries by philosophers, theologians, and logicians. And beyond whether you believe in a god or not, it raises a much deeper idea. Does logic have limits? Does it make sense to talk about something unlimited if the very language we use to describe it has limits? Some argue that the problem lies in the formulation of the paradox. They say it's absurd to demand that something all-powerful do what's logically impossible, like create a square circle. But then, does being all-powerful mean you can't do the illogical? Or does it mean you can break even the rules of logic? Deep down, this paradox doesn't seek an answer. It seeks to show that language has traps, that the idea of everything might mean nothing unless it's defined carefully, and that maybe absolute power is an illusion that only exists in our questions. 3. Schrodinger's cat. We've all heard about the famous cat that's alive and dead at the same time. And although it sounds like a physics joke, this paradox is very real and has enormous consequences. Imagine a sealed box. Inside is a cat, a capsule of poison, and a mechanism that depends on a radioactive atom. If that atom decays, the mechanism breaks the vial and the cat dies. If not, the cat stays alive. Now, here comes the madness. According to quantum physics, until you open the box, the atom is decayed and not decayed at the same time, which means the cat is alive and dead at the same time. Is this a joke? No, it's quantum superposition. Schrodinger created this paradox to mock what he considered an absurd interpretation of quantum mechanics. But over the years, science showed that, as ridiculous as it sounds, that superposition does happen. Subatomic particles really can exist in multiple states at the same time. Today, that same property is what makes quantum computers possible. A qubit isn't a 1 or a 0, it's both at once. And thanks to that, it can perform calculations that a normal computer couldn't finish in 1,000 years. The cat is alive, and it's dead. And until you open the box, you won't know. Which proves that, in the quantum world, reality is not what it seems. 2. The grandfather paradox. What if you could travel to the past? It sounds tempting. Maybe avoid mistakes, meet your ancestors, change history. But then an idea hits you. What if you killed your grandfather before he had children? If you do, your father was never born. And if your father was never born, neither were you. But if you weren't born, how did you travel to the past to kill your grandfather? It's a loop with no way out. A contradiction. This paradox is a nightmare for physicists because it breaks one of the most fundamental rules of the universe, causality. The effect cannot happen before the cause. And yet, this paradox shows that if time travel is possible, that rule might fail. Some theories propose solutions. One says that each change in the past creates a new timeline. Another suggests that the universe prevents these events through inevitable coincidences. And a third option is that you simply cannot change the past. But none of these solutions is definitive. And until proven otherwise, this paradox remains a thorn in the logic of time. 1. The liar paradox. Here it is, the simplest, the deadliest. A sentence so short it fits in one line, but so powerful it has baffled philosophers for more than 2,000 years. This sentence is false. If it's true, then what it says is correct. It's false. But if it's false, then it's not true, which means it's true. A loop, an endless game. This is a self-referential paradox, a sentence that talks about itself. And while it may sound harmless, these kinds of ideas can destroy entire logical systems. In the 20th century, Kurt Gödel used a very similar idea to prove that no mathematical system can be complete and consistent at the same time. There will always be truths that cannot be proven within the same system. Everything has a limit. And this phrase, with just 5 words, shows you that. The liar paradox has no solution because the question is flawed. It forces us to rethink what true means, what false means, and if there's something beyond those two options. Which of these paradoxes left you the most confused? Would you dare explain one in the comments? Paradoxes don't exist to be solved. They exist to break your certainties, to show you that even the simplest ideas can contain infinities. If you enjoyed this mental journey, subscribe, because on this channel, we don't answer what's easy. We question the impossible. See you on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.